Hello and welcome to a brand new video on SnowRunner. Now, recently, the developers released basically a deep dive on the new regions, and in this video, we're going to be going over the new information that was shared, along with some new screenshots that were shared that show some new trailers and loads, as well as a few other things. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, some of the information that the developers released in this announcement was very interesting, and I want to go over it in sort of bite-sized pieces that may or may not turn into larger than bite-sized pieces later on in the video. But with that being said, they start off by saying the SnowRunner experience isn't only about driving iconic vehicles with authentic off-road physics and environments, it's also about exploring the edge of the civilized world, wrestling the environments, and doing the jobs no one else will attempt to do. It's exploration, discovery, and struggle. Now, after that, they go on to sort of give us some information that we've already pretty much been aware of. Like, for example, they say the maps of SnowRunner have been improved drastically in terms of variety, size, and detail, with some being 4 times larger than MudRunner maps. The size of these maps lends itself very well to co-op gameplay, and they say they're particularly excited to see what we'll all get up to in these massive playgrounds. Obviously, the 3 regions are Michigan, Alaska, and Taymir. And they say, while there is a natural progression to provide you with a stable rise in difficulty, you're free to explore the regions in whatever order you would like. Pick any road or don't. They say, whatever you do, you'll still find easy tasks in the hardest region and difficult tasks in the easiest region. That's a very interesting point, and like a very interesting point to touch on. And you know, it kind of makes me wonder, like, how the balancing is going to work, because how are you going to have really difficult difficult challenges in an easy area and like really easy challenges in like a difficult area? I don't understand. I'm very curious to see how they plan on balancing that and how the players are going to wrap their minds around that one, but that's definitely an interesting detail to pick apart. They then go on to say that each region is split into a cluster of 4 maps, except for Taymir, which is 3 maps. They say the regions will provide you with a huge swath of land to cover, and they're all crafted to feel fresh and distinct from each other. So I think we're really going to see different personalities of each region sort of taking hold here. They say map design, sounds, and music, and overarching backstory all work together to set the tone for each region. Now, I want to touch on a couple of things there. Sounds and music. So does that mean, for one, that we're going to have region-specific music? And apparently it does. And for 2, region-specific sounds are going to be another really interesting thing, because I know that right now, I mean, most of the sounds that you hear are pretty much universal to every map that you end up on in MudRunner, really. Now, let's take a little while to have a look at this next screenshot. Now, the interesting things about this screenshot, as you will see in a second, are the fact that you're dealing with a lot of different things, right? You're dealing with a snowy environment, an icy road, you know, a fully loaded truck coming up to a tunnel. And this ties into some of the things that they talked about next. Now, they say, as you make your way through a map, completing jobs and finding upgrades and tunnels in the wild to expand your fleet, you'll find that some contracts span across more than one map. To travel between them, you must drive to the edge and use the tunnel that leads to the next. Certain paths may require you to complete a related task in order to pass. So, think about that for a second. That's weird to me, because as I think about that, I'm like, okay, well, what if you're already on one job and you know you have to get to another area, but you have to go through a tunnel that requires you to complete a different job in order to pass that? Like, can you postpone your current job? Do you have to give it up and start it over? These are all things that I'm sort of trying to sort of mill around in my head and see, like, kind of what route seems the most logical for the developers to take on this. I'm not too sure, but if you guys have any thoughts on how that's going to work, please do share your opinions on it in the comments below, because I'm very curious to hear. Now, this next shot is of Michigan, and they do say that even though Michigan is where your SnowRunner adventure begins, you are by no means obligated to complete it before moving on to Alaska and Taymir. Now, I think that's a very important point, because if you're the type that just likes to explore and doesn't like to be tied down to one map until they finish that, you know, and then unlock the next one and unlock the next one, if you're somebody that doesn't like to be tied down to a single environment or a single map, I think you're going to be very, very happy to hear that you can explore everything from the get-go. Now, I will say that I feel like one of the catches with that is you might not get the full experience of each environment if you decide to, like, go out of order. Maybe not like, you know, a little bit out of order. That's probably fine. But if you go, like, super out of order, you might not get the full experience. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see how they tie themselves together. But they say from forested valleys to marshes rich in oil, you'll be taking on a variety of tasks for the businesses competing for land in the Michigan region. So that right there, you know, basically alludes to the ideas of potentially logging, potentially like moving oil-based equipment, like all sorts of different tasks that could hint at. One of the other things that they did want to put out there is that even though there is a lot of mud and a lot of off-roading in the Michigan region, they do say that you will find more well-maintained roads in the Michigan region than you will in the Alaska and Taymir regions. So now that we've talked about Michigan, let's move on to Alaska, because Alaska is one of the most interesting ones for me. And this screenshot in particular details a lot of things that I am very, very curious about and really cannot wait to dig into. Now, first of all, we see that lifted four-wheel drive van that we've talked about previously, which I cannot wait to play around with and cannot wait to modify. We see it towing a bumper pull flatbed loaded with what could be potentially like steel beams, potentially like, you know, potentially some other type of material, but it looks like beams of some kind. And we also see this pipeline here on the side, and they say in the announcement that the Great Alaskan Pipeline will actually play a really big role in your gameplay in that region. And they say the Great Alaskan Pipeline stretches for miles on end through every map in the Alaska region, and you're here to make sure it gets done. So the Alaska Pipeline plays, like I said before, a major role in gameplay. Also, they say while the natural wilderness of Alaska dominates the landscape, you'll still find the beginnings of human infrastructure here, including things like a dock, a truck stop, and an airport. So those are all confirmed set pieces for the Alaska region. Now, which areas of the region they will be in remains to be seen, and we're going to have to explore to find out, obviously. But I think the fact that they're kind of hinting at the fact that there's going to be some, you know, interesting little sort of environmental attraction points thrown in there, I think is, for one, I think that's really, really cool. And for two, I'm curious to see how they involve those in the gameplay. And last but certainly not least, we move on to Taymir. Now, this region, which, by the way, the shot you're seeing on the screen right now, there's a lot of things that, like, for one, I'm seeing new types of trees, new types of, like, grass, flowers, all that sort of stuff. And then whatever this truck is hauling is, like, you know, ridiculous. Keep in mind also that this is a, what is it, 5-axle truck, like, 5-axle, 10-wheel drive truck. So that's insane. And also, the little watch point, well, not really watch point, but like sort of watch tower, as it were, right there, is also a new design. And these gates and walls are something that I haven't seen before as well. Now, they did say before, like I said, the most challenging region in SnowRunner, Taymir, lies in the deep north of Russia, where great swamps and forests hold abandoned Soviet-era architecture as it's slowly swallowed into the ground. They go on to say, as you rediscover the rugged beauty of these remote forests, you'll be able to take on, among other things, contracts to find oil using a special seismograph module. So that is potentially what is on the back of this truck, and I'm very curious to see how the gameplay works with that. They also say the search for oil will take you to places long forgotten. Now, they finish by saying, don't hold your breath looking for asphalt roads in Taymir, as most of them will be dirt or even mud paths requiring the right vehicle and wheels. Bogs, lakes, and forests make up the majority of the Taymir region. Now, that is where this announcement finishes, and I wanted to finish my takeaway from this announcement with the fact that I am more excited than ever to see the variety between these regions once the game releases. And not only that, but I'm very, very glad that they did not limit you to a linear progression model. I'm very glad that they didn't limit players to a model where they're basically confined to doing one map and then another map and then another map, or one region and then another region and then another region. If you want to jump to the hardest region in the game first, like right off the bat, you're free to do that. If you want to, if you want to take the natural progression and go from like easiest to most difficult, you can also do that. So there are a variety of ways that you can go about progressing through this game, and I think that there are a lot of interesting tidbits and takeaways in this announcement. I feel like some people may have looked at this announcement and almost overlooked it because they might have seen like, oh, they're talking about the environments again. We've already talked about the environments, and while we have already talked about the environments, they go a lot more in detail here on what you can expect within each one, like, for example, features, difficulty, and also showing a couple new little tidbits in those screenshots. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure you leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with your friends, and then also subscribe, click that notification bell, and I will see y'all next time. Talk to you guys later.